Hello, everybody. Glad you guys can be here today. Today, special guest, Mr. Ryan Flights. Ryan is the definition of a pioneer and trusting that hard work will work. It started with a bold move of his to sell everything, go out and buy an RV, and then travel the U.S. Selling different shirts and underwear. And now the business is probably the most well-known underwear brand, and it's sponsored by different NBA All Stars and NFL All Stars. And one of the things I find most intriguing about Ryan is one of his mantras, and that is, "We are almost somebody." And I'm excited to hear a little bit about that mantra, where it comes from, and if he still utilizes it today. So, Ryan, thanks so much for being on here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, as everyone knows, the premise of the podcast is, as you're living your life in the moment and when the moments are happening, you don't always know that that's going to be the catalyst to something bigger. And only in hindsight can you really say that was the moment. And it allowed for a pivot. And so with Ryan today, his story is just absolutely fascinating, and I'm excited for him to share that. But just to start with, you're big in the art side of things, and have always been big on the art side of the business. But talk to me a
Mhm.
little bit about childhood, growing up, and where that all stemmed from.
Yeah, so as a child, man, as far back as you can remember, I guess, or as I can remember, my parents saw that I had some artistic gift, you would say, and started, kind of making sure that I had the right stuff. As a kid, you spend time in your room. I remember always being in my room, like sketching stuff out, trying to draw and paint. I'm a big sports fan. Even as a kid, I had people I used to look up to, obviously the Jordans and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So as a kid, I was always drawing and painting athletes,
Yep.
and it just has always been a thing throughout my life I've been able to do naturally. And thankfully, I had the right parents that kind of were made it so I was capable of, grow as I grew. I had the right stuff in front of me to make it all happen and continue on.
A- Absolutely. So, even in his childhood, Ryan was always forward thinking, and he has this experience where he's going with his grandpa somewhere, and his grandpa ends up using a line to introduce him that ends up being pretty pivotal across the course of your life, huh?
Yeah. It's funny. My grandpa Harold, his name's Harold. He's my best friend. I mean, honestly, I talk to him every day still.
That's
He's taught me a
awesome.
lot about life, and he's a character. He's funny. If he's around, everybody laughs at him. He's a good, positive person, and I'll never forget it. This is I was out of college, just had graduated, and it's the summertime, and he kind of came up to me, and his friends pull in with their old, antique cars, and he says, "Yeah, this is my pants sagging grandson." Like, because at the time, baggy pants, stuff like that was a thing. I grew up
Yeah.
with that. So it was funny. I went home that night, and usually late night, I go out with friends, come back 1:30 in the morning. I always would draw and just relax and kind of settle in, and I had created other clothing brands that I made stuff too. But for some reason that night, I wrote down pants sagging, and I don't know why. I just kept writing it over and over again, and then I threw design with it, and pants sagging design was born. It was crazy. It was ridiculous, and the first 25 people that heard that I was actually gonna start making shirts with my designs on it with that name told me I was crazy. But I just couldn't get away from it. It had a lot of meaning to for me, and for some reason that one just stuck. And today we've grown it up into PSD underwear. It's wild.
Absolutely.
Obviously, my brother Kurt and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to dig into that though, because there's so many people that once they start getting, whether it's negative feedback or critical feedback, they all of a sudden that's like, boom, I'm done. So what is it about
Yep.
like you and Kurt that were said, I don't I don't care what you guys think, like we're gonna forge forward with this idea.
I could honestly say it was one of the first times in my life that I didn't let other people really have any input on what I was doing. I mean, I had a lot of people say, "Hey, man, I wouldn't throw money to that," because we
Right.
didn't. My brother Kurt and I, we don't come from money. We had the money that we've worked for, at that
Yep.
point in life, and always had jobs, always saved, stuff like that. But yeah, it was a crazy idea to all of a sudden start a clothing brand with that name. And we were wild, but we didn't care. We just we started. My first shirts were $200. I had
Yeah.
50 shirts made, and I was pumped. And they were gone within a day, and I was like, this is kind of strange that I could sell that many shirts that quick. Now, granted, I was selling them for like $8, $10, stuff like that, but they were gone, And
Yeah.
Kurt and I were like, hey, let's just keep rolling this thing, and so we started producing more and more, and it didn't matter if people didn't like it. Eventually, we got to the point where they didn't have a choice. They were like, you either join us or you're left behind, and it
Yeah.
kind of was a snowball effect,
I love it. I love it. So you're building it, and then there becomes this day, and I would love to hear like what the conversation is. The day where you guys say, all right, screw it, we're selling everything, we're buying an RV, we're gonna, put a design on it, and we're gonna just work our tails off until it becomes successful. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, that conversation, and maybe some
Yeah.
feedback you even got there.
Well, it's funny. The RV thing happened. I think my brother Kurt, he passed it and he saw an old RV and he's like, hey, maybe we should get something, be like a traveling billboard, because we started venturing out to more events and we were getting out of town, coming back into town. But just in general, we had to build this like name and the vision of everything. So the RV was pretty much happened. I mean, everything my brother and I do is like, we just say it, let's do it. You know what I mean? There wasn't too much thought into it. It was like, hey, this is how much money you have. This is how much money I have.
Right.
Let's go in. We'll get this RV. So we went out. We sold anything that we could, whether we had a car or two or anything. My brother and I were always into motorcycles. We had the street bikes, the dirt bikes, all that stuff. All that got sold. And yeah, we went out and bought our first RV, came back, we painted it black and we stickered it up, and we hit the road for a little while. And then we ended up going all in and buying our real tour bus RV that we still own today. But yeah, we hit the road, like nothing was stopping us. Obviously this was like the recession time.
Yep.
So 24 years old, I didn't really know which way I wanted life to go for me, and there wasn't too many options when it came at that point in time, with the recession.
Right.
So Kurt and I said, let's go all in, let's do this. So that's how that all started.
I love it. Yeah. So 2007, 2008 is when this gets started up. And I guess started before that, but really, I guess, becomes a brand, right? Becomes an idea that you guys are going to go into. Now,
Right.
I wanted to ask you about this. Kurt has a quote, and it was, I've gone in every door that opens for us, and every contact we met with when we were getting started. And I think that's so powerful, right? Because I'm sure there were plenty of events you attended, and afterwards you're like, what the heck did we do? Why did we show up to this one, right? I mean, not everything goes super smoothly, but it's that willingness when you're getting started to just do whatever necessary. So, I mean, how did that benefit you guys? I mean, are there a couple specific instances that you think of where you're like, in the early phases, like, man, I'm glad we went to that?
Well, the crazy part is, I can say this, it's every event that we attended, we brought something better to that event. Like we always strive to like be at the best of what our capabilities were. So like all our displays, everything that we ever did, we made it look, at times you would think you were walking into a store at a mall, like our storefronts and everything that we build. I mean, we could do this in the middle of a hayfield. It wouldn't matter where we were. We'd make it a presence. We had a carpet underneath our display. You'd walk up, you'd stand on carpet. There was just so much that we brought to the table. So all the events that we went to always opened up a new door for us. People would invite us to something else. And we really never said no. I mean, there was times where people would say, hey, this event is, for instance, we'd be in Florida and someone say, hey, there's an event in Vegas, but it's in 3 days. We're like, we're there. And we would literally pack up everything and hit the road, where most people would be like, short notice, can't make it. That will maybe next year. There was no maybe next year for us. It was always like, hey, let's get it while we can. Let's go. And I can honestly say that like my brother Kurt is someone that I could always go into battle with, knowing what I'm in battle, like who I'm in battle with. You know what I mean? Like
That's huge.
he had my back, I had his. It didn't matter. We did crazy, crazy things. Obviously, before we had the structure of the business, you know, we just had to make these moves. And you know, Kurt was the captain of the ship, and he drove the RV, and I sat there passenger. I created designs while we were on the road, and we'd be sending them back home to our guys like, hey, try to print this, and we'll tell you where we're at so you can ship them. And we'd ship to hotels, you know what I mean? Like we'd have boxes and we weren't even staying at the hotel. We couldn't afford it. We were staying in the RV on the side of the road or in a parking lot, you know, at a Walmart or a truck stop. But we'd have the boxes shipped to the hotel, and we'd go get them, and away we went. You know, I mean, this was just like
awesome.
It was a crazy, crazy time. You know, and looking back, it's wild to think, you know.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to get to one of those moments where an opportunity presents itself and you guys take advantage of it. But first, you guys get some big publicity. Wide receiver Stevie Johnson plays for the Bills, which you're a big Bills fan, as I understand it.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
And he sends
something we can brag about this year.
Hey, they're looking damn good, aren't they?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I know they're letting Bills Mafia fans in for the game this weekend. You think you're ahead up there? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make it.
Fly out from Cali.
Yeah.
No, so Stevie Johnson sends you a message before this game, and he says, "Hey, maybe you should tune in." Right?
Yeah.
Tell us how this played out.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we had reached out to Stevie, which at the time, our involvement was action sports. We had a lot of, you know, say motocross guys, skateboarders, the X Games style stuff. You know, obviously that was a big time at that point.
Right.
But the NFL, the NBA, MLB, all that stuff, we hadn't ventured into, even though I was a huge fan, you know, of all those athletes. But Stevie, I came across something where Stevie, you know, who was way ahead of his time in fashion. The guy was amazing, and he had a style to him. And just absolutely crushed it. But he's on the Bills, so I was pumped. So we reached out to him. Actually, it was funny, through Twitter. I think we found at the time.
Yeah.
Found his agent, long shot. Reached out to him. Stevie saw our stuff, loved it. We meet Stevie. It's an instant connection. Like it was the easiest thing ever. You know, really down to earth, cool guy.
That's awesome.
And he's the face of the Bills at the time, so it was a big deal. So so we became friends, and it was cool. Like I think Stevie respected what we were doing and just joined in on the PSD life. So before a game, he texted me, he goes, "Make sure you're watching the game tomorrow." And I'm like, "Of course, I'm gonna be watching the game." You know?
No doubt.
So, sure enough, watching the game, at one point, Stevie gets in the end zone. He scores a touchdown, and he lifts up his shirt and pulls like his pants a little bit down to show the PSD underwear. And it was as clear as anything. And all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up, you know, Facebook, everything started. I get all these messages because a lot of people recognized what he did. Right. And, you know, he got fined for it. It was one of those things, but at that point it was the biggest thing that had ever happened to our business. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, here was an NFL wide receiver, has absolutely no reason to speak to me on a personal level, tells me, you know, obviously we're in business, but we were still small. I mean, we were a small time company. We're talking, you know, still, you know, in and out of our small town running the business. But that was an amazing point. I'll never forget it. You know, it was just such a big deal. And I'm still very close to Stevie, friends with him, and he's an amazing dude.
That's awesome. So at that point then, when this happens, to your point, you know, I'm sure that's huge publicity. And then the fact that, he gets fined on it, which means, you know, they're going to talk about it on, you know, major publications, right? ESPN, you know, hey, this guy getting fined, and people are probably inquisitive on, well, what the heck did he get fined for?
Well, the funny thing is ESPN and those type of, you know, businesses and the TV stations, they do everything they can to not mention brands that they know nothing about. So they didn't say our name. They didn't even try it. Yeah, that doesn't come for years, you know, but they did everything they could, but it was out there. We could use it, we could take it and run with it, and enough people that that mattered did see it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was definitely a stepping stone. It was more of a cool personal moment, I think, for my
Yeah.
brother and I in business than it was a staple to. It didn't Sales didn't go crazy because of it, because it was
Yeah.
kind of a quick little thing, but it was an amazing thing for us moving forward.
Absolutely. Now, want to go back to a comment you had made earlier where you said, you know what, people would notify us of events going on and we would just say, yep, let's go do it. And so one of the pivotal moments coming up is you guys are driving back from somewhere. You get back to New York and you get a phone call that says, hey, in 22 hours or in 24 hours, there's an event at University of Florida. And you guys look, and you
Yep.
say, 22 hours away is 24 hours
Yeah.
from now.
Doable.
We can make it. We can make it.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy again, but yes, that was how we ran what we did. You know, it was. There was never a time, I feel, and like I said, having the right person with me in business, my brother Kurt, who was the same, if not more, spontaneous when it came to, yeah, we're there. And you'd hear the RV fire up and we'd load everything we could and away we went. So back to Gainesville we go. You know,
Absolutely.
and
And so
yep,
while you're there, you guys have this huge presence. You have the huge long line, and someone, if you're a basketball fan, Mr. Mike Miller, from the home of the Corn Palace, he's on Florida's
yeah, Mike.
campus. Yeah, he's on Florida's campus for homecoming. Being an alum of Florida, and he was like, "Well, what the hell are these guys doing if they got such a long line?" So how'd that interaction go down?
Yeah, Mike saw us, saw what we were doing at the time, and Mike's an entrepreneur himself, and he had an energy drink. And Kurt and Mike actually started chatting it up, and if you ever talk to my brother, just a business mind. He's very very talented with everything,
Yeah.
and we back it up with hard work. So it goes hand in hand. And Mike, took a liking to us and our brand, and pretty much it started what would eventually turn into a business partnership, and Mike being that like big brother to us when it came time to start focusing on the mainstream sports
Yeah.
and the athletes. And it was a huge thing, and if we never went, it never would have happened. You know what I
Right.
mean? Most people right there talk about pivotal moments would have said, nah, we just came from Florida, we're not going back.
Right.
I mean,
It's 22 hours.
99.9% of
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
you're so spot on. Well, and that's what I love about like everything with your guys' story is just the mentality and the mindset of like, we're going to do this, right? We're going to, make this brand into what we want. And you're willing to then, like you said, put the hard work in to get there.
Right. Right. And that's, I mean, it sounds, you hear it all the time, but it's all about what you're willing to put into it. You
Yep.
know,
Absolutely.
it's easy to stay at home. It's easy to stay where you're comfortable, but when you get outside that comfort zone, it's pretty much you can make anything of what you want. I don't know.
Yes.
It's crazy to say that, but yeah, it's like we never hit the road and said, maybe not. We were just like, hey, let's go check it out. You never know. And doors
Absolutely.
opened.
Absolutely. I love that. So now you have a little bit of a, segue or an opportunity to get into the NBA, right? I mean, because Mike at this time still playing in the NBA, so he's got connections and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
It was perfect timing.
Yeah. So talk a little bit
Mike was
about
in
that.
so Mike was actually just arriving in Miami with the Miami Heat, and LeBron James was there, D Wade, the Bosh, the team that won the championships, and Mike's part of it. So all of a sudden, Kurt and I find ourselves at the Miami Heat games, waiting around for Mike, and he's introducing us to everybody. And all of a sudden, it was like we had a presence in the locker room as a brand,
Right.
and the guys, more and more, all of a sudden it turns into that they want stuff, and it's like you start seeing that your brand is becoming, accepted on a high level.
Yep.
And yeah, it's crazy because Kurt and I have never really taken time to reflect on a lot of this stuff. Every day is back at it,
Right.
and it's a crazy thing when you do think back to like at that point in time of my life, being able to have tickets waiting for me and and Kurt and myself at a Miami Heat game when LeBron James is playing there, is just stuff that's unheard of to the
Right.
to an average person like myself. That it was just an amazing time to see that our business was getting respect.
Yep.
That we had been working hard for.
You bet. Well, and so thinking about that, and before I go to kind of like the next point, I'm curious about this. Oftentimes, as people are growing their business, sometimes these big events happen, but maybe like the actual cash flow side of things hasn't turned around yet or isn't the game changer yet. We were talking to someone the other day and they're like, yeah, I was working with 3 of these huge athletes, but I was actually couch surfing because I couldn't afford rent. And, I'm not saying you guys are in that spot, but, what's some of the misconceptions?
Oh, no, we were worse.
Okay. I was gonna say,
No,
what are some of the
yeah,
misconceptions,
we were worse.
right?
There's no covering it up. My brother and I mean, you don't have money when you're,
Yeah.
if you don't come from money and you're in business,
Yeah.
you have an uphill battle. I mean,
Absolutely.
there is no, and you got to remember, everything that we made and we're making was going right back into our business, not including our RV would break down every 45 miles, even though it was a nice diesel pusher RV, everything. But man, it doesn't matter how nice you have something, you're going to have, mechanics bills. And when you travel, stuff happens. So we had many times where there was no money. It was like, hey, we're going to keep pushing forward. And that's why we would attend these random events that were, whether they were small town or big city, we would attend them because we were like, hey, we gotta sell some product to make some money to even think about getting us home,
Right.
So yeah, anybody that says, like I said, everybody's different, every story is different.
Yep.
But business is very difficult
Yes.
to make it when you don't have money, and Kurt and I always found a way.
Yep. I love that. I think there is something to be said about having your back up against a wall that forces you to figure it out though, right? So that's good.
If you wanted the truth, there was probably 1,000 times that we should have walked away and quit.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's been the crazy, the life of PSD, but that's where success is made. That's where successful stories are created. And we always had the same goal of building a successful brand and, changing our generations to come in our family. That has always been the goal. And it's crazy.
You're doing it.
14 years.
You're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So we got Mike now and we have an entry into the NBA and you guys get the opportunity to start meeting Kevin Durant and, some of these other big name, big time players. And as you meet Kevin, he loves the brand. Obviously you guys love Kevin and what he's, stands for and what he's going to do in the NBA. And so you strike up a deal, or so we think.
Yeah. No, so we had grown, obviously. We had moved to LA. We set up office and facility out here. And some time had gone by. Our product was a lot better. We started developing things and started getting the more of the structure. And through relationships with Kevin Durant, we start meeting with him, and it was great. Kevin is an amazing dude. I haven't seen him it's been years now, but the time we did have, it was really cool. It was always genuine, so cool. Down to earth. After a game, we'd go meet, we'd hash it out and talk about stuff, and he literally was all for it, and it seemed like it was a go. Kevin Durant was going to be our biggest name, our biggest sign, and it was going to change the game. And we got everything to the point where the paper was supposedly in the mail, signed contract, signed deal. We had already started developing all his product, and next thing you know, he goes a different way. And that's not, that wasn't on him personally. I don't think it was just a business move at that time that's part of business.
Yes, it is.
It didn't go through, and it sucked personally. It hurt. It was, one of those things where like, wow, you can sit there, you have all these meetings, and everything seems like it's a go, and you put all this time into something, and then all of a sudden someone else steps up and away goes all that, that work and that energy. But you know, I that's another thing about us is we always bounce back right back. Like
Yep.
we stressed on that maybe for 2 hours, and it was like the next day it was a clean slate, and we end up landing Kyrie Irving,
Yeah.
like real soon after, and that was a big, obviously huge deal for the company.
Absolutely. So, well, it'll be interesting. Maybe you can get up to some Brooklyn games now that Kyrie and KD are teammates, and reminisce on some of the PSD underwear
Yeah,
stories.
no, KD's we're still cool. KD,
Yeah.
he rocks PSD and we rock with him, you know what I mean? So like that is one thing about our company I'd like to say is that we never hold anything, we didn't hold a grudge. It sucked. It sucked
Yep.
for us. It didn't suck for him, you know what I mean? It didn't change his
Right.
life any. But there's absolutely no hard feelings. He is still rolls with us. We just didn't launch the signature line.
Yep.
That's the only thing that changed. So
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all love.
Absolutely. Well, and so then to your point, we transitioned to Kyrie, and you'd like to say that it was just super simple, but if I understand it correctly, you guys still had some other lines you were doing, some shirts, some, other merchandise. And to get the Kyrie deal done, you had to you had to say, we're switching.
Yeah. And this is the stuff that Kurt handles, which is I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I don't have to dive into these things like he does. But yeah, it was just, we produce shirts, and when you have an athlete that's under a big company like Nike, they're not going to let you just
Right.
put out the same stuff as them and expect that their athletes are going to share their walking billboards, So
Yep.
we became strictly PSD underwear, like overnight.
Yep.
It was like, we're not going to do any more tees, none of that stuff. We're just going to run with the underwear game and make the best of it, and we did. And it's been crazy, a crazy climb since.
Absolutely. So
Which actually at the time was not fun. Whoops, sorry about that. It was my art no longer was being on shirts, which was kind of like, to me, it was a bummer, because that was me. You go to Vegas and I'd see random people walking around with their stuff on. It was just such a cool feeling.
Yeah.
An accomplishment. But it changed the game. Now our product was hidden.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I want to dig into that in a minute, but I do have a question for you. So as the business is growing, I think, every business reaches that point where all of a sudden you go from, oh, man, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it to, all right, this is at least a sustainable business, right? And, it could turn into a career for us. Are there any specific moments that really stand out to you where it's like, that was the moment, where now this is going to be a career. It's not just we're trying to fulfill, a pipeline dream.
Well, the crazy part is like from day one of me creating the PSD line, and Kurt and I, it's been a career job. I mean,
Yes.
I left my job right then and there, and I was full time. And I think 3 months later, Kurt joined me. So it was like, since day one, this is all we got,
Yeah.
And Kurt and I have always found ways to make money throughout our lives. Like I said, my grandpa is a big influence on us. He was a car dealer. He owned a car dealership. So he taught us how to buy and sell stuff. There was always side ways for us to try to help with making money to put into our business. So that always helped. But no, it's been a career since. I mean, it took up all our time, and it was our focus every day since the day that it was created.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love it, man.
But as far as I was gonna say, as far as like turning points when I realized that it was the real deal was when we finally got our structure and our setup in Los Angeles, and it was like we started to get employees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kurt and I were doing everything, along with other people obviously helping the brand. But as far as like physical employees clocking in under our roof, that was when I realized like this is becoming a legitimate business.
You bet. Now, how many athletes do you guys do endorsements with at this point, or do you have repping your brand?
Um, it's endless as
Yeah.
far as, can you still hear me, Phil?
Yep, you're good.
Um, it's, it's, we have such a huge family of athletes now. It's out of control, and I love every minute of it. We have the new rookie class is always coming up, and they're part of they become part of the brand. It's just a endless thing of new family members, like we like to call it, like welcome to the team, and
Yep.
and as far as people that support our brand, we support them. Um, I couldn't even tell you the entire roster. As far as signature lines, there's a handful of guys, obviously the Kyries, the Jimmy Butlers, Trae Young, John Morant's a new one that
Very cool.
we have. But there's a huge family of people that organically wear our stuff and support the brand.
I love it. Now, for you guys, after, I think it was after the Kevin deal, you started switching the way that you were working with athletes, and you guys, I mean, maybe weren't the first company to do this, but you started pioneering a different way to do deals with athletes that are going to represent your brand. And I mean, what all went into that for you guys?
Well, for us, eventually when Kyrie came on, we reached a point where we could start to open up an equity position, to actually become a partner and become part of a brand. So, excuse me, we started, just using that as far as the going forward plan of our brand. And then eventually it got to the point where our brand is big enough now to where these signature lines matter. It's a great thing to have a collection under the PSD roof, and we put a lot of hard work and energy behind each collection, and the athletes are already there. They've already established themselves in life as far as their careers in the sport that they play. So it always helps when we launch these collections with guys like such as John Morant, Trae Young, like the young guns that have come into the league, and are already having great success. So we just back it up with what we do, and the deals usually are just cut and dry and easy. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. So as PSDs just continue to grow. And once again, I mean, it's a household name now. It's super popular brand, but your passion has always lied the most in the artistic side of things, right? I mean, I'm sure you appreciate everything, right? Like getting to go to the Heat games, like all of that's fun. But to your, true love, right? Once again, kind of where we started at, it's always been on the art side. So as the t-shirts kind of went away and that took a little bit of your artistic abilities out, how did you segue into what's now is, your new company or your new business that you're additionally working on? Flights, whatever.
So eventually PSD, obviously the bigger we got, the more of the trends that things start to follow in the fashion world. So eventually the graphic design part of stuff became just, what it was all about. So my actual hand sketched drawings and paintings and stuff started taking a back seat to the design world of our brand. So to stay, I guess, inspired and able to do what I enjoyed, I created the Flights Whatever brand. And that was the label that I gave my original art, stuff that I was painting or drawing, anything I was inspired by. I started labeling under the Flights Whatever mark. So that just started randomly one day. I was painting in the office and I decided that it wasn't turning out on the canvas. I walked over and I grabbed a piece of cardboard that was sitting in the trash, and I painted this Notorious B.I.G. painting on it. And that day, the Flights Whatever thing was born.
I absolutely love it. So I will post a link on this to this photo. I mean, you have to check out his artwork. It's absolutely amazing. And I saw one you posted the other day of the Tracy McGrady, after you and I had spoken on the phone, and I think you had mentioned the T-Mac. I was like, dude, that's amazing. And that was a while back, right? That was one.
One second, Phil. I think
no, you're good.
You cut out just 1 second. You there?
Yep, I'm here. You hear me?
Okay, sorry. Yes, yeah, I heard you through the Tracy McGrady T-Mac thing, but I heard the T-Mac
Yeah,
and that was it. So
yeah, and I said
repeat
that
what you
that
just
was
said. Sorry.
that was one of the very first ones that you did, right? I mean, way back when.
Oh, so the T-Mac was my senior project
Yeah,
in high
yeah.
school.
But I saw that one. I was like, dude, that's
So
amazing.
yeah,
And then I see what it is today. It's like, wow. I mean, what a transformation. But you were still really good, even, at that moment in time. The T-Mac's like really good.
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was funny because that was my senior project. I played sports in high school, so the art thing, I did art when nobody was really looking, but I took all the art classes in school, so it was kind of weird, the art thing. And listen, I'm an artist, but I'll say it, artists are weird, most of the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I really just did art when nobody was looking. But the T-Mac was my senior project, and yeah, I came across it while I was home in New York, and I dragged it out, and that thing. It's looking back, it's cool because I could still take myself back to when I was painting that.
That's so cool. Now, one thing that Ryan self-acclaimed says is he appreciates, I mean, just about anyone's art, but he doesn't want to model his art after anyone, and he's not necessarily like researching others' art. He says, I kind of just want to do whatever the hell I want, and fortunately, people think it's really good. So, what is it about just your confidence level that allows you to say, hey, I'm doing what I want, and fortunately, I've now built a brand that people love, the style that I bring and just the art that I'm producing.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of my thing, but I don't focus on other artists and I don't research art. Like I have mentioned before, it's one of those things where people ask me all the time, hey, have you heard of this guy or you heard of this girl or this artist, blah blah blah. And most of the time, no, unless
Yeah.
I've physically seen their work, randomly ran across it, I probably don't know who they are. And there's nothing more to it than I just don't go out of my way to research because I focus on what I'm doing. The flights, whatever, the whatever part of it is because I paint whatever I want,
Yep.
I'm capable. I was born with a gift, and I feel like when it comes to art, there's nothing that I can't do. I just choose like the paintings and the pieces I want to produce. That everything that I do is my choice. And whether it's very little detail or extreme detail, it's how I feel. It's like, if I want to do a really detailed piece, I'm capable of it.
Yep.
But if I don't, I don't, so it's just one of those things as I've grown, I've kind of found my way.
Absolutely. So 2 questions off of that. One is, I mean, are your art skills that you're using today with just the different designs and pieces you're creating, are those all self-taught? Did you ever, seek someone out to learn a little bit, or is it just, hey, trial and error and figuring it out?
100% trial and error. I've had, I did actually start, excuse me, freshman year of college. I was going for art and I walked away from it 4 days in. I changed my major because, I just wasn't that art, obviously professors and stuff, they try to teach you a certain way. And me as an artist, I do everything my own way. Now, granted, I have friends that are artists. If they have a technique that say, hey, this will save paint or this will do this, of course, I take all the knowledge in. But no, all my art is self-taught. I paint with edges of cardboard sometimes. I paint with my fingers, like finger paint. There's just so much that goes into it. There isn't one style or one way that I do what I do. It's like there's a lot that goes into each one of my paintings, and I enjoy always having it be my way. I mean, some of my paintings you can see my sketch marks, and I leave them because I kind of enjoy that. Yeah. Whereas years ago I might have covered them up. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's like there's a lot that goes into each piece of mine. There's a lot of uniqueness. I try to create with every one of them, whether it takes me an hour to do or just 2 months to do, so.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I took freshman art as well, and let me tell you, the things you're producing, that's not how they teach art in college, at least at the very basic level. So I'm glad you just do it your way, because it's way more badass that way.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Now, there are certain pieces that are not for sale. there are just certain ones that do not have a dollar amount. Well, they do, right? But it would just have to be, a ridiculous
Right.
amount to be for sale. And so at this point now, how do you kind of pick when you've created something that you're like, no, I'm gonna always want to keep that, and then others that you're, producing to actually, be sold or to be given?
Yeah, so with my art, I've been fortunate enough to have some great success with selling some high-end pieces. Um, and you get in front of the right people that collect art, and the sky is the limit when it comes to it. So,
Yes.
I have pieces that I won't sell unless this crazy price tag is put on it. The Notorious B.I.G. one, the first painting ever, that would take a lot to ever leave my,
Yeah.
for me to ever sell that, it would take some crazy, ridiculous offer. But yeah, there's a ton of pieces that I hold, and I just pretty much continue and protect the value. And all my clients and collectors that have my stuff, I don't ever they don't ever go on sale. I don't do that stuff, because why would I take, a great offer from somebody and then sell something similar for a quarter of the price? I just refuse to do that. So there is a lot of paintings that I hold until the right people come around to protect who's bought my stuff.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay. So I've got 3 pointed questions for us, or I guess topics, I'll say. So the first one is this idea, and it's been just deeply profound in my life. And the phrase is blissful dissatisfaction. Okay. And so it's that idea that most people will never reach their full potential, because when they hit a goal, they just stay on a plateau. Okay. Then there's the other group of people, which is what people like you and I more fall into. And that is, we're constantly trying to get better and get the next thing and do more, that we never take the time to reflect and be happy or satisfied with what we've accomplished, because we don't want to get stuck on a plateau. So it's like, well, I better just keep going, and then I won't do that. So for you, how has that impacted, you and Kurt in the business, in your life? Just, being able to say, hey, we've accomplished a ton of cool stuff, because you have, but at the same time, but there's more, and we want to accomplish that.
So, I'm speaking for myself, but I know Kurt's the same way. We're never satisfied.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't matter what levels of anything we've ever reached. Like, there's always more. There's always a way to better things. And we keep pushing forward. It's it can be annoying at times, because, like I said, we've never taken a time to celebrate anything, really. It's like, we'll say, hey, great, let's go, and it's on to the next thing. And that goes, I think it's a personality trait. That's the same thing with my art. I'm never satisfied. I have probably over 200 originals right now in the vault that just sit there. And most artists would have yard sold them a long time ago.
Right.
And, and me, I could have 10 solo shows, and I could have them, and I could do it all in a year. I could do it over the next 10 years, and I still will have art. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just, it's always trying to move forward, always trying to better things, and always trying to grow, as we all grow older,
Absolutely. Love it. Second one, do you have a favorite book or a book that you've read that you just love?
Childhood, Where the Wild Things Are, is literally one of my pieces that I've done recently. I did a huge cardboard piece that was featured at Art Basel in Miami. But it reminds me of my childhood, with my mom always read that story to me. My mom's a huge person in my life, one of the most important people in my life. And that just reminds me, that's just a book that just always stuck with me. As far as actually reading adult books and stuff like that, if I'm reading, I'm not painting, so I don't read much. I'm always, if I have downtime, it's creating artwork. So I'm not that thorough of a book reader.
No, I love it. I love it. That's great. You'll have to send me a photo of that big Wild Things piece. I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Perfect. Then the last one is this. What is the top trait that you look for in your close circle? Or, you know, maybe today you're probably not doing much on the hiring side of things, like people you bring on the team, but, you know, the top trait that you used to look for when you were doing the hiring or bringing people into the, you know, PSD family?
Well, when we were on the road and like throughout our business, it takes a certain person to be able to hang.
Yeah.
You can either hang or you can't hang. I mean, it comes down to that.
Yeah.
And we would find out real quick who could hang. And it's one of those things where you got to just show up and be ready to work and be ready for the madness of our brand. There's
Right.
always craziness, and you can have a set structure and a schedule all you want, but just know that it's going to change every single day, because we still, even though we have this amazing facility and everything and the structure of the employees, we throw more on the table, even if it's not on the schedule, as things, you know, happen.
Right.
You never know when something big is going to all of a sudden take the place of an entire year's schedule. It's just, you always got to be ready for things to change quick. And we have an amazing group of employees. Some have been with us for years, some are new, but it's always a great atmosphere at PSD. We try to build that, and, you know, Kurt and I are real. We own the brand, and we've all grown with it. But we're still real dudes that understand life, and,
Yeah.
you know, things happen. So we build a really good atmosphere at our company.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Well, everybody, it's been a pleasure having Ryan on. I hope you guys got to learn as much from Ryan as what I've learned, just getting to know his story and, you know, all the pivotal moments that have led he and Kurt to where they are. So, Ryan, thanks so much for being on today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Bet, man.